Convocation. Please stand for the processional.
Thank you for being here, and please be seated. Welcome to today's special Academic Convocation, kind of a special tradition here at SVU. I'm Provost Bransfield, and I'd like to mention those who are with me up on the stand. Very pleased to have Chairman Dane McBride here, if he could stand and wave. We've got also Associate Provost Karen Walker and Jeremy John, and then our speakers. And our speakers Kyle Nielsen and Crystal Cleveland. This is a meeting held every year. We love the applause here, it's very great. This is a meeting held every year at this time to celebrate new opportunities, new students, new faculty, and the common cause that brings us all together, the pursuit of education. We will begin our convocation this morning by singing hymn number 58, Come Ye Children of the Lord, after which the invocation will be offered by John Lee, Senior Class President.
Come ye children of the Lord, let us sing with one accord. Let us raise a joyful strain to our Lord who soon will reign. On this earth where it shall be, cleansed from all iniquity. Sin will cease, and will live in love and peace.
Thank you, John. As we've learned, the word convocation means a gathering or a call to gather, and I just love President Wilcox's refined purposes for us at SVU to gather, to lift, and to launch. Needless to say, this is one of our great purposes, and we do this to support each other in the lofty endeavors of SVU. Today we'll be reflecting on the value of this endeavor. We'll begin by hearing from Crystal Cleveland, a senior from New Jersey, currently serving as the academic senator. We'll then hear from Professor Kyle Nielsen, a new faculty member who is also one of SVU's distinguished alums. Following that, it will be my pleasure to address you. At the conclusion of my remarks, the benediction will be offered by Claire Moncourt, Senior Class Vice President. Crystal.
Thank you. I want to throw a question out to you. What will your future self thank you about your educational experience here at Southern Virginia University? As I think about the many opportunities that we have at this university, I think of the opportunities to pursue athletics, to pursue music, to pursue learning how to be a leader servant. But most important, the reason why we came to this university was the opportunity to pursue an education. I want to talk today about some of the things that have helped me to envision a future after Southern Virginia University by taking the education experience that I've received here. We are blessed with so many professors who are qualified, passionate, honest, and invested, who care about every student who walks through their classroom. You're not just a number in the classroom. They know you by name, or they're learning your name. They know your weaknesses, or they will soon find out your weaknesses. And they are willing to help you if you accept their help. One of my favorite things about the university is that it's not just the professors who make the difference. It's the opportunity to go to a liberal arts university where service is an instrumental part of learning. Where else can you go that will cancel a whole day of classes just so you can go serve, so that you can go meet the needs of someone else? At a liberal arts university, the whole point is to gather a broad understanding of the world around us. Here at this university, it should not just be enough to get an A or a B in the classroom. We aren't just trying to score the best GPA to get into the graduate school of our choice. Our curriculum and professors invite us to accept challenges, to think critically, and to contemplate how the information that we study can impact our world and the world around us. A key asset to the education that we receive here is that you're not just doing this alone. My educational experience would not be the same without the faculty that we have here. Some of them have become my close friends. I visit them often in their offices, probably more often than they would like. But these friendships are something that has helped me to look at them as faculty members who I admire. People who see talents that I may have that I do not see oftentimes. They push me to be better, not only in the classroom, but as a person. Because I don't just go to their class to absorb information. I watch them outside of the classroom. I watch their examples, and their examples reflect the person that I want to be. I want you to think about some of the courses that we have here. I think of one class that I have where my professor draws a box right in the corner of the chalkboard, and he says, take something from this class today. And that's something I really appreciate about him, is that every time I leave that classroom, there's something that I take, that I think about, and then I apply it in what I'm doing. And that's what really matters about our education, is that we're not just absorbing the facts, but that we're taking the things and we're making them important in our life. We're making them instrumental in our life and also the lives of the people that you will touch. There are so many talents and gifts and abilities that you have. And I know that sometimes we may not always see it, but I promise you that the faculty, they see it within you. They look at you as something that you can become, and something that is far greater than just a number here at this university. One of the other things that I've gathered here is the ability to find my voice. I remember being a freshman and being totally intimidated by coming to college. I was worried about speaking up in the classroom. I was worried about my course load. I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I would do what most freshmen and some of us still do, is whenever a professor asks a question, we kind of look out the window or we look through our books and act like we're looking for the answer. But really we're just a little afraid. And so I've had the opportunity, and you will have the opportunity too, to find your voice here. I am confident that when I'm thinking about something in the classroom, now that I should share it. Because sharing it will make not only me better, but it will bring up things that a professor can expound upon, or maybe correct. The opportunity to use your voice is huge here at Southern Virginia University. What you have to say matters. What I have to say matters. And that's something that no one can give you. That's something that you have to find. So find your voice. If you challenge yourself and take the opportunities before you, you will realize that deep down, there is a voice. You can personalize your experience here, but it's just another opportunity, and you have to decide whether you want to take it. Thomas Edison said, opportunities are often missed by people because they are dressed in overalls and disguised as work. It's hard work. And education is hard work. Being in the classroom is hard work. I'm not here to sugarcoat and say that I am a perfect student, because I'm not. But I'm a student that wants to work hard. I'm a student that tries to give her best. I'm a student that appreciates when a professor pulls me aside after I've written a paper that got the score that it deserves, but helps me to look at the tools that I can use to make it better. If my future self were to come to me today, this is what I would hope to hear. You are impacting so many people's world, because I believe I can. I believe that each of us can take the education that we receive here at Southern Virginia University, whether it's academically, intellectually, spiritually, or socially, and we can impact people's worlds. I think about what I gained here, and you should think about it too. It motivates me to think about what I want to give the world. I can give the world my best self, and I don't know what that looks like yet. But one of my favorite quotes is that some people fear the fire and others become it. I am passionate about the opportunity to set the world on fire. I believe that there are gifts and talents that I have that have been magnified here at this university. And because of this education, I am more confident to walk into the world and set it on fire. There are things here that you will find out about yourself. There are things that you didn't know about the world that you will find out. And it's up to you to decide what you want to do with that. I want you to look at Southern Virginia University as a well. We come to the well to draw water. Someone who draws water has a purpose for it. The water is often maybe given to animals or to people, but their intention is to share the water. We come to Southern Virginia University to draw water from the well, full of professors who are passionate about learning, stretching, and growing. A spirit that invites you to live with honor and to be clean. The opportunity to serve and follow the example of Jesus Christ, who was the greatest leader because he was the greatest follower. We take that water, and there's plenty of it to go around, and we fill our buckets. And we think about who we want to be and who we will share it with in the future. It could be children, family, it could be students of your own, business partners, a practice, or simply people who will cross your path. So I'm going to invite you to do one thing. Fill your bucket. Take the opportunity each semester to gather all the water that you can so that you can make a difference in this world, so that you can take the unique education experience that we have here at Southern Virginia University and you can find your voice, so that you can think critically, fearlessly, and live gratefully. We are the future. Your future self will thank you for what you put into your education here at Southern Virginia University. Be confident, be hopeful, and set the world on fire. Thank you.
So, as Provost Dransfield mentioned, I am a proud alumnus of Southern Virginia, and it's right, nice. Back when we were green. And I'm humbled to be carrying on the choir tradition here as Director of Choral Studies. In the time that I've been away from SVU, I've worn a lot of musical hats, this one included. And the questions always come back to where I went to school. It's usually in the first conversation when you're talking to other music pros. After the initial shock that people find out I'm a Mormon choral conductor that didn't go to BYU, they ask why I went to a liberal arts college if I just wanted to be a choir director, because it's not a lot of work, of course. Fortunately, I've gotten pretty adept at telling people how my Bachelor's of Arts degree from SVU actually better prepared me for my life as a well-rounded professional musician. And that conversation routinely comes back to three main tenets. SVU taught me how to write persuasively, taught me how to read and think critically, and to speak and present myself convincingly. The first one started at 8 a.m. on the last Thursday of August in 2006. 18-year-old kid with puka shells on from California, walking into Landrum Hall with Dr. Scott Dransfield in the 20 class, which he probably remembers semi-fondly of me, hopefully, as a freshman. Dr. Dransfield helped me discover how to really craft a thesis about almost anything. This supplemented in my later work in classes like Intro to Theater History or Contemporary Dramatic Literature in my core classes. Really writing with a purpose and with an argument is something I thought I did in high school and then learned a lot differently from Dr. Dransfield. That next semester I took Western Civ 2 from Dr. McDonald. In the many years I've spent in the classroom since that class, no one has inspired me to read as thoughtfully about a topic or be prepared to speak clearly about my understanding of the subject matter. Some of that may have been out of healthy fear of disappointing him when he called on me to speak in class about the reading, but it taught me a major lesson and influenced my approach to reading in the rest of my undergraduate career and beyond, and absolutely influences who I am as a teacher. My first class after my mission was Reason in the Self with Dr. Jones. This is something I'll never forget. Dr. Jones presented the Socratic method to us, as many of you have learned in the last few weeks, and then proceeded to start using it on everyone to teach us how to do it. I thought that was genius and was a revolution to me. particularly in how I teach. I actually referenced the Socratic method in my education statement as part of my application for this job. So thank you to Dr. Jones. I guess here I am today. Yeah, all of our great faculty. So when I got to grad school, I knew how to think, I knew how to write, I knew how to speak, I knew how to study, and was really prepared. I had that experience over and over again of the many years I put into grad school as I made my way through 2 Tier 1 research institutions, the schools that are supposed to be, the thing we hold up, and around colleagues who went to larger universities or conservatories, that my expert preparation for my time here allowed me to focus entirely on my craft while I was in grad school, as opposed to playing catch up to learning fundamentals, as many of my colleagues did. I was talking to Melissa Davis today about how in my master's class I was the only person who'd written in Turabian, which is the music style. And I couldn't believe that they got out of undergrad without writing in Turabian, and I knew the whole book because of info lit and other things like that. Now, as a professor here, I like to think that those skills that I learned and saw work in grad school I'm putting into practice every day, especially writing, as anyone in any of my choirs can attest to the number of emails they get a week. As a professional musician, the thing from SVU that really helped me to grow is I identified and developed an entrepreneurial spirit within myself. I hit my inevitable, what am I going to do with my life moment in my sophomore year of college. I just got married, which might have had something to do with it. And I realized that being a full-time professional singer or actor just wasn't going to be a reality for me. And so what was I supposed to do if I can't sing, right? I stumbled across conducting as a viable career, and then it infused a lot of my interest into one discipline. So after I Googled it a little bit, I realized I was really underqualified to do it. I of course went to my academic advisor on the verge of tears about it, and she, in her wisdom, it challenged me to create a teaching assistant internship of sorts that could get me some of the experience I would need. So that turned into what many of you know as the music department internship that we have today, of students conducting the ensembles and getting that experience. It allowed me to develop my craft in a protected environment while still getting the experience I needed to succeed in graduate school. And that experience changed the course of my life completely. All thanks to one professor, Dr. LaRae Carter, who I have the privilege of replacing now in this capacity, who understood the principle behind gather, lift, and launch well before it became a point of emphasis within our community. Back then we called it the genius of small. And now that I'm back here, I see how the genius of small was really the genesis for the personalized education all of you have such immediate access to now for your majors, your advisors, your concentrations, and your career tracks. Don't take those opportunities for granted. They can shape you as a human and for the rest of your life. This education prepared me to be a choral conductor in ways I couldn't have even imagined until looking back on my experience. It's now my conviction that the choral classroom is the most effective interdisciplinary laboratory on a college campus, and here's why. We take the best words written in history set by masters of composition, formed in context of landmark historical research, combined with cultural understanding from centuries of anthropological studies. This is in addition to languages, obvious intersections with art and theater, not to mention the importance of science and math. It's all there in choir. Just as an example, just this semester, me and 100 of your colleagues are doing a study on poetry set by 3 Romantic era composers exploring the burgeoning role of female empowerment in the 19th century Europe. We're delving into a secular study of the role of the atonement in the life of an American millennial, aka you, specifically as it relates to becoming spouses and parents, losing spouses and parents, and reconciling all of that through hope in the Savior. We're exploring America's first classical music genre, the African American spiritual, at an even deeper level and understanding its role in our country's cultural fabric, while exploring how we ourselves can bring that vital message to life. We're singing pieces in Russian and German and Latin and French and all sorts of different types of English. We're confirming basics of anatomy and the voice as it relates to posture and breath and singing and acoustics, and the science gets complicated, but it's all there. We're using our iPads for rehearsal for our scores and for performance. We're using the Apple TVs to better engage in rehearsal, and we're having a good time. and we're making friends, and we're committed to excellence. And I tell you that because I never would have been prepared to do all of that, to actively explore this relationship with other academic disciplines had I not experienced them in a contextual, immersive, exploratory environment that makes our core curriculum at Southern Virginia so unique. I realize this kind of comes off as a hard sell to join choir, and maybe that's not an accident, but I bring it up mainly because that was my experience. I sang in choir every year next to people who are now doctors and lawyers and engineers and anything else you can think of. It cemented my commitment to the interdisciplinary nature of the liberal arts education I now hold so dear. There were 80 people in the choir my senior year, and 3 of them were music majors. So we all brought something different to the table, and it really enhanced what we were learning throughout our education. It's this approach to learning implicit in the core curriculum that can permanently establish your learning throughout your time at SVU, and as our mission says, prepare you to become leaders, servants in the workplace, and in the world, in the community, in the church, and in the home. I had the privilege of learning that lesson in choir, and I revel in the challenge for myself now to provide that same experience to all of you. I can personally guarantee that if you really, truly commit yourself, if you do all your readings with intention, participate in class, write thoughtfully, and think critically about how the principles you're learning relate directly to your lives and your other studies, your mind will be stretched, your spirit will be enlightened, and you'll have an increased capacity to thrive in your career, whether you're a lawyer, or a journalist, or a scientist, or a full-time parent, or even just a choir conductor like me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kyle and Crystal. It's amazing how these two almost anticipate where I'm going. We really didn't collaborate that much, but there it is. Hey, make my talk. Not entirely, actually. I've taken a topic I've been thinking about for a while, and it goes like this: why do I teach? Today I want to spell out entirely from my own point of view why I am devoting myself to teaching. If you've ever asked yourself what makes this guy tick, here is your chance to understand a little bit better, and maybe understand some of my colleagues, your other teachers as well. I say these comments as an individual teacher, though I imagine many of my reflections are shared by my colleagues. The question is what motivates us? What gets us going? And how is understanding matters from a teacher's point of view going to help you be a better student? In some sense, I imagine we teachers are like a species. We share certain patterns of behavioral norms and family resemblances, and even gone through perhaps similar evolutionary processes. But on the other hand, we're very different individuals and do things very differently. So while we may represent a range of styles and personalities, and believe me, we do represent a range of styles and personalities, I think we all experience very similar motivations and desires. As I go on, please forgive my weaving back and forth between a first person I and a first person we. I do it to underscore both the very personal nature of my talk, as well as reflecting on us as a collective whole, my colleagues and I. And dear colleagues, forgive me if I say something that might embarrass you. It's always good. It's always, everything's on the table, you know. I want to first suggest that teaching is a desire. Like many who seek the right vocation, those who go into teaching do so with a sense that the classroom is a place where really cool things happen. For many of us, it may have begun with a very positive classroom experience from our past, maybe a relationship that we had with a teacher. In any case, at some point, this turns into a feeling that I want to do this. I feel called to this vocation. And as you might know, vocation does come from the Latin. This is so SVU. Vocation comes from the Latin, which means a calling of sorts, or to be called. Now, there are many reasons to choose a range of vocations. Some vocations are chosen through a desire for the satisfactions of financial independence or through the pursuit of a comfortable lifestyle. or one that's family friendly. And I should say at the outset that one of the things that really motivated me to go into teaching was that it did seem like a very family friendly career. And I wanted to be home with my kids, and well, there were the summer months too. Didn't realize that I use those summer months for research. But in any case, all kinds of motives why we choose the vocations that we do. But I've never spoken to a teacher who did it for the money. Now, I don't want to over-dignify the profession by saying that, oh, we do this, then we are taking our vows of poverty and all that. But I do want to underscore that there really is an internal feel. And not so much an external incentive. What is this inner motive? The poet Theodore Ruthke, who is known to be a life-changing teacher, said, quote, "People should want to teach in the same ways as in the old days a preacher wanted to preach. Many of the men who once went into the church now go into teaching." While I don't feel entirely in agreement with this, it does illustrate something about the inner call that teaching represents. It also suggests something about a relationship with that captive audience, be it a congregation or a classroom full of students. After all, there must be some to preach to. Thank you for letting us preach to you. Perhaps this desire stems from something I want to share, or something that I want to preach for that matter. This is very natural, of course. We all want to share our lives, our discoveries, hopefully our testimonies with those around us. Why else do we have Facebook? Share our politics, whatever. Those of you who know me know that I love music, especially jazz. When I discovered jazz as a teenager, after burning through all those rock albums, I really felt like I couldn't keep John Coltrane, the great tenor sax player, a secret. I took all those rock albums down to a place called Plastic Fantastic. By the way, we're talking about like records, LPs, 33 inches, you know. Or no, it wasn't, they weren't 33 inches, never mind. Records! So I took these to a place called Plastic Fantastic in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, and sold them for albums by Miles Davis, Coltrane, of course, Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, Chick Corea, others. It was so incredibly cool. I wore my brother to madness, insisting that he must listen to A Love Supreme until he could see how superior it was to Stairway to Heaven. The music of John Coltrane, by the way, has remained a passion of mine. I must confess, right here, I will use our recessional music to share with you a bit of John Coltrane. Now, let's take this desire to share and apply it to a more academic setting. I, along with my colleagues, have spent many years developing an expertise in a particular area, and Kyle, you're right on with this. He thinks that choral music is the end-all, be-all of academic studies. Great. Along the way, I've immersed myself in a discipline that provides a lot of insights on life. In my case, my discipline is the study of literature, great works of fiction, drama, and poetry. More specifically, my expertise is in the literature and culture of the Victorian period, or 19th century Britain. From many perspectives, it might seem a very narrow, maybe irrelevant pursuit. But I assure you, from my point of view, I can relate nearly everything of importance in life to some development in Victorian life and thought. Just ask my leader servant students. Thank you. That's totally spontaneous, by the way. But I imagine one could say the same thing about Roger Johnson, Professor Roger Johnson, and his specialty in the chemistry of microscopic organisms, or Richard Gardner and the central importance of yeast to life. The point is, we teachers believe passionately in the value of that which we have to share with you. And I have got to imagine that this desire is universal throughout all of us. For further proof, see what happens if you approach Professor Armstrong with some question relating to Plato's importance to Western thought, or approach Professor Mosser with a question of the role of the Austrian Habsburg dynasty in the development of continental European culture. Make sure, however, that you have plenty of time, because it might be a long experiment. Next, I, as a teacher, want you to succeed. In other words, I want you to learn. But what does that mean? It means nothing short of this. I want to change your life. Yes, it is important to me that you perform well on exams and papers, Grades do matter, of course, and I want you to have an impressive GPA. But to me, that's not necessarily the true test of your success. The true test is whether a serious study of the material I presented to you has left an impact on your perspective of the world, on the way you think, and perhaps even on the way you prioritize your values. I need some of this. For you to successfully fulfill this goal I have for you, you must completely open your mind to my subject. This involves more than effort simply to perform well on exams and papers, I'm afraid to say. You must be on a little journey yourself to discover truly what I have to offer you. It cannot be a passive endeavor. You must be the traveler. And this journey goes beyond the 15 weeks you have promised to occupy a seat in my classroom. Here's an example of success were you a student in my Classics of Western Lit course. Kyle, this could be you. Let's say I meet you at a homecoming event 10 years after you graduate. And yes, it's very likely that I will remember you, especially if you had a good bit to stay in class. You're now married, with 2 children in the midst of a developing and satisfying career. Life indeed has moved on. We start talking, and you tell me about your preparations for a gospel doctrine class that you'd been preparing several weeks ago. You relate the experience of making a doctrinal connection to something you remember reading in Milton's Paradise Lost, one of the books in our class. You tell me how you got the book off the shelf and, after paging through the book for 10 or so minutes, found the passage that had come to mind. You read it through with a sense of nostalgia for your good old SVU days, true, but more importantly, you rediscover anew the words of the English poet. You experience a new sense of meaning and value in this passage. You say to yourself, certainly I did not see this back when I was a student in Professor Dransfield's class 10 years ago, and yet these are the very words that I underlined. What has happened? You've gone on learning. The value of what you were introduced to 10 years ago has grown. Your reading of the literature in the class 10 years ago has continued to exert an influence in how you process and express ideas. And not only that, but your capacity to read profound language and see the depth of meaning has grown. You have continued to make connections between different types of thought and expression. You are a successful graduate, SVU graduate. And I will say that making connections between different kinds of thought and expression is something you will do for the rest of your life, no matter what profession you enter. That's a really important operation that we really emphasize here. And beyond that, you realize that the moment of discovery 10 years ago, now 10 years later, comes with a renewed sense of the vibrant place that is your mind. You recall coming upon a quote that Professor Dransford was particularly fond of that goes something like this. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. Now, famous quote. Crystal has caused me to really rethink that. We do fill our pails, don't we? We do fill our buckets. Also lighting a fire. We talked about fire too, Crystal. This is uncanny. Have you taken one of my classes? So let's move on. In any case, this fire that continues to burn through the rest of your life. Life is wonderful, and it starts with an education. Finally, as your teacher, I want to get to know you. I want to be friends. I care about you. While teaching embodies a desire to share and desire for you to learn, it would seem that all this occurs best in terms of a relationship, the teacher-student relationship. I would suggest that this is as basic a relationship as that occurring between parents and children, between friends, between siblings. Another form of this could be the coach-athlete relationship. As I said earlier that teaching is a desire. Now let me say that teaching implies a relationship. In fact, teaching is a relationship. Think of Christ and his disciples, of Socrates and his followers, of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker. That's for you, Zach. and of Ralph and Mr. Miyagi in The Karate Kid. And I'm talking like the 1983 Karate Kid, not this time. Okay. Dad, you're doing your 80s thing again. These are memorable examples of how instruction and insight is passed on through a relationship that may not always be easy. And I remember that movie, that Karate Kid, and the tensions between Ralph and Mr. Miyagi, who had him washing his car and doing all of that, and wax on, wax off. And many times it was tense, and there were misunderstandings, and there was a struggle. But notice the close relationship. This is ideal. These are memorable examples about how instruction and insight is passed on through a relationship that may not always be easy, I said. Ultimately, the teacher-student relationship results in profound esteem between both parties. So if learning is best through a relationship, what is this relationship based on? Like all relationships, trust is a very important element. We teachers trust in you, that you want to learn, and that you're here fully intending to develop your talents and your intellect. Okay, so it might not come all at once, and sure, we know that many of you go to college with hazy expectations. But think of it. You're taking quite a leap of faith, committing these precious youthful years of yours and spending a lot of money coming to an institution that claims it wants to gather you with others, lift your capabilities and your character, and launch you into a promising future. How can you do this half-heartedly? You must gulp hard and throw yourself into the prospect. We trust that you are coming to realize this and that you are willing to make this commitment. And we teachers accept your trust with humility and gratitude, and we will work hard to challenge you. In a recent study of outstanding teachers, it was found that this development of the teacher-student relationship is in fact pointed to produce excellent results in student learning. Here's how one teacher put it, quote, "Our teaching must communicate that we have an investment in the students, and that we do what we do because we care about our students as people and as learners." And further, "I will do everything," quote, "I will do everything possible to help you learn and develop your abilities, but you must decide if you want to engage in this experience. If you do decide to join this enterprise, there are some things you must resolve to do and to make it worthwhile for you and others in the group," close quote. So to recap, as a teacher, I have something important I want to share with you. I want you to succeed, and I want to engage in a meaningful relationship with you. Understanding where I'm coming from, how can you make the most of this? What can you gain from understanding a little bit about what motivates us teachers? First, make a real effort to connect genuinely with what's going on in class. Many of you will take classes here at SVU that may not seem entirely in line with your own personal interests or your ambitions, and that's just great. Learning always involves coming upon new things for the first time, things that might not make sense at first, or things that might seem irrelevant or boring. If you're taking a math class, for example, and you've never really gotten into math, well, now's the time to get into math. Let your teacher's enthusiasm become yours. Find out why your teacher likes math and listen openly. There will be an important story there. Second, and I think it's safe to say that your teacher always wants to hear from you. Go ahead and speak up. We all have office hours, time we devote to working one-on-one with each of you. What an offer. It's free. Well, it comes in a package. Take us up on it. Also ask questions. Knowing that my students have questions but are not asking me nearly brings on a state of anxiety. Overcome your hesitancy to ask questions. Whenever I hear a student begin by saying, "This may be a stupid question, but," I know I'm about to hear a very good question, a very important question, perhaps one that's on many students' minds. Third, treat each class as a unique event, rather than simply a means to get information. Yes, it is important to ask, what did I miss when you have to miss a class? And I will respond with some basic notes and concepts. But so much of what happens in class involves light bulbs going on, not just recording stuff that you need to know to do well on a test. We like to have conversations in class, which means that things may happen spontaneously. Many times my students teach me. Just this morning, my Classics of Western Lit course, in my Classics class, students were teaching me what they had learned about Homer. I was delighted to hear that what they are learning about Homer does not necessarily connect to my notes. I heard evidence that they're making their own discoveries and insights. What discoveries and insights are shared openly in class? When discoveries and insights are shared openly in class, big things can happen, including genuine learning. In closing, I feel it appropriate to share my feelings about my wonderful career at SVU. In the above comments, you may note a sense of idealism and enthusiasm. That is entirely connected with my life at SVU, this college. I came here in 2001, and before that I had taught in college classrooms for about 12 years when I started as an inexperienced grad student teaching freshman English in 1989. From there, I taught at big state universities and small liberal arts colleges. But it wasn't until I stepped into the SVU classroom that I really discovered what teaching could do. I am among those who confirm that SVU is a special place. I have never been among such like-minded colleagues, and I am deeply impressed by how much they care for you and they care for their work. And I have never been among students who really seem to fulfill my highest expectations, students who are so good and so eager to be better. I have been amazed at some of the transformations I have witnessed among young people who come here, not really knowing at first what this is all about, and without even much of an academic drive at first, but who leave as truly capable, talented leader servants. I hope you come to realize this for yourself. I love you, wish the best for you, and congratulate you for being here. Thank you.
Students, please rise for the recessional.